Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. So, Witch Queen is around the corner, and I imagine that some of you might be looking to catch up on the important core lore and story that you need to know before release. Consider this video to be just that, a little primer for Witch Queen, and a sort of directory for where you can go for your best sources as well. If you're a veteran player, there is one thing in particular that I'm going to go ahead and recommend. Well, two things, but I'll talk more about that at the end. Before we start though, two quick notes. The first is that this video will obviously contain spoilers for some Destiny related things, in particular Season of the Lost and Witch Queen marketing material. The second is that this video is sponsored by Keeps. They're a long-time sponsor of the channel, and I'm so glad that we're working together because they offer something that is genuinely useful for you, my community. It's one of my rules that if something's going to be a sponsor on the channel, it should be either something that people will use or something that people will be interested in. With 95% of you being male out there in my audience, I have the stats for that, YouTube tells me everything, Keeps is both something that might be of interest to you and something that might get used by a lot of you. 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35, and it doesn't have to be that way. With Keeps and their suite of hair loss prevention treatments, you can take back control and save your hair. Keeps will deliver their product direct to your door and keep you in touch with someone in their network of expert medical advisors and care specialists to help you select the right product for your needs and to support you in your hair loss journey. Each treatment plan comes with a full year of unlimited messaging to them, and you'll always be able to connect to your prescribing doctor to ask questions whenever they might arise. Hair loss stops with Keeps. To get 50% off your first order, go to keeps.com/bife or click the link in the description. That is keeps.com/bife. Thanks again to Keeps for sponsoring this video. Now, if you're a veteran player, I'm going to assume that you've already played enough to at least know who Savathun is, and regardless of whether you've been around since Destiny 1 and the Taken King expansion, or whether you've only played in Destiny 2, I'm going to assume that you at least have some idea of who Savathun is if you're a veteran player. If you do, then I'd recommend going and watching the interactive trailer for Destiny 2 Witch Queen, which I'm linking down below. The trailer is interactive because it has nodes that you can click on which will pause the video and expand on the topics that are discussed. It gives you context on Savathun, Oryx, Fundament the Worm Gods, Savathun's Throne World, the Deep Sight ability, and a neat little theory on how the Hive Guardians might have been created using light that was stolen from the Savathun Song Strike back in the beginning of Destiny 2. All things considered, if you're completely new, once you've familiarized yourself with Destiny's lore and story even just a little, this trailer is very much worth doing. So if you are a new player, still go ahead and check that out at the end of this video. It's a great primer for anyone who wants to get up to date with the core story elements as soon as possible. It's so good that I actually for once don't want to break it down or do anything from it. My chief recommendation is simply go there, take a look for yourself, and start to understand. It's brilliantly presented, and I really applaud Bungie for doing something like this. It's not exactly a perfect previously on Destiny type thing, but it is really close. It's the next best thing, and honestly, even if we did get a previously on Destiny type deal as a trailer or as some kind of introduction to the Witch Queen, I'd still recommend making these because it's a really cool format. Now, there's also those of you who may have no idea who the Witch Queen is, who Savathun is, what's going on, and who may be jumping into Destiny for the first time. And to those of you who are veterans, I'm going to apologize if the information I'm about to talk about is retreading some ground which you might have already covered, but I consider it important, especially with new people coming in, to really think about the basics and to consider some of the new players that are just arriving in the game for the first time. To them, I say, welcome. And that this section of the video is very much for you. We're going to go over some of the truly core Destiny basics here and get you up to speed if you've never played before and need a true introduction to everything. I'm not going to make this too long because I have a wealth of other videos that go into full detail, and I'll be recommending something longer and very cinematic at the very end, something that will be out in a few days. So, let's talk about the core premise of Destiny's story. Destiny's story is one about the forces of light and darkness in a constant struggle. The light is commonly represented by the Traveller, whilst the darkness is commonly represented by the Pyramid ships, also known as the Black Fleet. However, there are other powerful champions of darkness and light that have made an impact upon the conflict and upon the story of Destiny. Whilst we, the Guardians, are champions who are generally tied to the powers of the light, there is another set of champions that fight for the darkness, a race of genocidal aliens known as the Hive. For generations, they were led by the Osmium Dynasty, a trio of siblings who set their species on the dark path to become those crusaders for darkness. The dark entities they made the pact with are known as the Worm Gods, and the three siblings, after having made this pact, would ascend into godhood themselves. Those three were known as Oryx, the Taken King, Savathun, the god of cunning and lies, and Xivu Arath, the god of war. Back in Destiny 1's Taken King expansion, the Guardians, one of whom you might have played canonically, killed Oryx, and this sent the whole of the Hive into disarray. You see, Oryx was the greatest amongst their number. He had communed directly with the entity behind the darkness itself, and had a unique power, the ability to create the Taken, or at very least, an ability linked to him by the darkness, which allowed him to create and control the Taken. He had led the majority of the Hive for a very long time, and his death created a power vacuum within Hive society, and invited the possibility for either Xivu Arath or Savathun to step into the position of sovereign. Savathun was assumed to be the one making a more concerted play for the throne for a long time, and thus the title of Witch Queen slowly began to manifest on her shoulders. However, after Oryx's death, she went into hiding to make an effort to strategize. You see, Oryx's death was a truly unprecedented event. It proved that the Hive and the Darkness weren't ultimately the arbiters of the universe and its fate, which for the longest time they had believed, given that none before them had been able to stand against their genocidal campaigns, and also there's a lot more to do with that particular belief that's tied up in philosophy and the nature of the darkness, but ultimately let's just make the important point that Savathun understood that the light had power as well as the dark, and that the dark was not the supreme arbiter of the universe. From here, the strategizing really began for Savathun, as she worked over the course of 5 years to expand her presence quietly in our solar system. She took out other rivals within the Hive that might have continued Oryx's line, she gathered intelligence using the Taken, she tried to prevent us from obtaining the powers of the darkness, and she even infiltrated the Guardian's home in the Last City and the core of our leadership known as the Vanguard by possessing one of our closest allies, Osiris. In doing this, Savathun was able to weaken us from within, and to pave the way for what happened in the Season of the Lost. During this season, Savathun struck a bargain with Mara Sov, the Queen of the Awoken of the Reef. Mara Sov is a key figure within Destiny's politics, and is an ally of sorts to the city, although she is quite deliberately very cold and very aloof. The bargain that Mara Sov struck with Savathun was that she would free her from her worm, the worm that Savathun had devoured when she made the original pact to become a god. You see, this was one of the conditions of that original pact. The young worm larvae children of the worm gods had to be devoured in order for the Hive to obtain immortality and escape from their otherwise short lives. However, these worms forever tied the Hive as a species to darkness. Savathun, having freed herself from the worm, would then promise assistance against the darkness to all those who had helped her. This was, however, a bargain that Mara accepted, knowing full well that Savathun was going to betray them and not uphold her end of the bargain completely. This, of course, being exactly what you'd expect from a god of lies and cunning, one who more than once had dealt a great deal of pain to the Awoken people, and even to Mara Sov personally. Not to mention that we Guardians had a stake in ensuring that Savathun was killed too, given that her possession of Osiris had been revealed as her effectively holding him hostage. She had promised to return Osiris when all of this was said and done, and we were there, as well as Osiris's lover, Saint 14, in order to ensure that if Savathun didn't uphold her end of the bargain, that she would be promptly destroyed. So, in order to accomplish this and to excise Savathun's worm, we would need to gather a group of Mara's closest and most powerful allies from amongst the Awoken forces. They were known as the Techeuns, and a group of them, which is known as a coven, was effectively held captive by the forces of the Darkness and Xivu Arath, as they were hiding within the Ascendant Plane. and the forces of the darkness were hunting for them. Using their combined might, when they had all been rescued, we were able to exorcise the Worm of Savathûn. However, before Mara could strike against her, the Witch Queen fled. It appears now that the Witch Queen has taken the light's power, turning her back on the darkness completely and on her sister Shivur Wrath. The Greater Hive Swarm and the Worm Gods who gifted her with her power to begin with have also been betrayed by this action. Perhaps one of the strangest surprises of all is that Savathûn actually upheld her end of the bargain and did return Osiris to us. And so, our mission in the Witch Queen expansion begins. But what are we going to be doing? Our mission is going to be to delve into Savathûn's throne world, to defeat her and to take back the light. But what is a throne world? Well, throne worlds are pocket dimensions that powerful creatures in Destiny can use to cheat death. They're also crafted in the image of their creator, or according to their creator's designs. If you are killed in the physical universe, you will be reborn again in your throne world, and it's only within that throne world that you can truly be killed. For those of you who understand the idea of D&D and liches and their phylacteries, it's a fairly similar concept, with the difference being that the phylactery has an entire pocket universe within it, and you would need to enter the phylactery and kill the individual who wields it within in order to ensure their final death. Savathûn's throne world, by its very nature being the throne world of a god of lies and deception, is built on lies and deception, and holds a vast number of secrets. But more so than this, it represents a strange tale of a creature that for so long was one of the greatest avatars of darkness that rejected that power and has chosen the light. There are run-down and disrepaired areas that more commonly reflect that dark past, and a gleaming new city of pearly white that now reflects Savathûn's present state as a creature that has learned the power of the light, even though she is one we would most certainly not call a friend. Savathûn is the most powerful enemy we've ever faced, not least due to her Hive Guardians and the terrible power that they'll also be able to wield. By the way, did I mention that she's created versions of the Hive that are also able to wield the light just like her, which will represent powerful combatants with powers equal to our own. Some of them can even be seen as mirrors to us. But what's furthermore is this. Something bigger is afoot, and it seems somewhat subtle at first. Savathûn's betrayal of the darkness has pushed us to further embrace the darkness and its power. We did so previously in Beyond Light, where we learned the power of our first darkness subclass known as Stasis, and ultimately decided that we would use the power of the pyramids for good, even if they weren't planning on having us use it that way. Savathûn's betrayal of the darkness and us embracing the dark powers, such as Deepsight even further, has put an interesting dynamic of power at play. Now, us and the darkness are on the same side to a certain extent as far as Savathûn is concerned. The lines between friend and foe are starting to blur, as are the lines of morally good and evil. The light, given that it embraced Savathûn in some respect, is not necessarily good, and its power is being used for evil in her hands. But the darkness is now being embraced by us, and we are using it for good. There is now a greater degree of moral grey in Destiny's universe than there's ever been. But there's something even more troubling than that. Savathûn wouldn't have chosen to abandon the power of the darkness without good cause. She's one who plans and plans and plans for years and years and years, for millennia and millennia and millennia. And in order for her to choose something so dramatic as to betray the darkness and to earn the ire of her sister, her species, her former gods, and even the darkness itself, tells us that there's something far bigger afoot. Savathûn doesn't do anything without cause, and I think that she is playing a far bigger game than anyone potentially realizes. It may even be the case that she is attempting to ascend beyond the war between light and dark entirely. Whilst we are playing a game of chess, maybe she has gotten up and left the room entirely. But that's all from me for now. I hope you found that useful, and if you did and you want to hear more of it, go ahead and stick around on the channel. In particular, stick around for the 21st of February. On the 21st of February, I'm going to be releasing Dynasty. Dynasty is a cinematic, movie-style telling of the entire story of Savathûn, using 3D and 2D animation, some fantastic art, and an incredible cast of voice actors and some fantastic sound design. Hopefully it's something that you'll all enjoy, and it will be something that will give you all a better idea of the story of Savathûn going into Witch Queen. This is going to be something that I hope really excites you all, and it's something we've worked on for a year, basically. So if you are looking forward to that, hit the subscribe button, go ahead and leave a like on this video, and let me know in the comments section down below. But of course, as per usual, know that your viewership is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rhodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.